Hello there. As you can probably read from the title, we will be talking about the Wayward Realms lore book, Parredégais. Sorry for my mispronunciation of it. And we will be talking about how good it is. If you want to read the story for yourself, the story will be in the description below. But before we get to that, I want to answer how we'll be establishing how good or bad this is. So, in my view, there are 3 points that a lore book has to achieve. 1, does it tell us something about the world, meaning it gives us information that is in the game world that we are playing, or it is a part of it. 2, what we read in the lore book will be actually interactable in game, meaning we can meet, characters, faction, places, or an idea that is in the lore book. Now, the first 2 points are related, but the difference is that point 1 is more akin to world building, and point 2 is more akin to actually interacting with that world building. And the third point is it a good story? Now, that is fairly subjective, but I measure how good something is depending on how well it accomplishes what it sets out to do. But before we get into that, I want to summarize the story so you can get an understanding of what we're going to be talking about. So, the story stars a character called D. The story doesn't give us his name or anything, who is writing to Vosknik, a friend, sibling, or maybe a lover. It isn't really clear who they are to D. The letter is informing Vosknik that he is sorry that he didn't write to him sooner because he was shipwrecked but is now safe. He then goes on to recount what exactly happened to him, that he was saved by a man called Dolia, who took him in and helped him get to the nearest city. D continues to write that he helped him and his family as much as he could. One day, he sees Dolia's youngest daughter, and sorry for my mispronunciation, Aurelia, carrying driftwood and seaweed from the shore. He offered to help carry them for her, and he picked up a shell in sort of like a weird exchange kind of way. She then screamed off when she saw this shell, and Dee was shocked at this and went to go ask Dolia why she acted like this. He then proceeded to tell him that he was about to there's a tale called about a boy called Paria who collected shells whose openings faced upwards to get the attention of Diala, the goddess of the sky. He collected so many that it made a mountain of shells. The mountain eventually caught the attention of Dahlia, as those shells belonged to Dahlia, the goddess of the sky. And he told her that he wanted to see if she was more beautiful than her mother. Dahlia was offended by the boy and then said that, but later calmed down and then said if she wanted to see if she was most beautiful than her mother, he would continue collecting shells until it reached the sky, where he can visit her. Paria then went on to collect more shells, but couldn't find any more shells that had facings open upwards. Diala then told Paria that he should collect shells that have openings facing downwards. Paria did this, but what he didn't know was that it belonged to, and again sorry for my mispronunciation, Crataeus, the queen of the seafloor. She was angered that Paria is collecting her shells and giving it to Diala. She then dragged the boy into the mountain of shells, and he was never seen after that. Dee, after hearing this story, was quite troubled. He asked why he would tell his children the story, why Dahlia would tell his children the story, and he simply replied that he find it quite funny to do so. Dee says in the letter, after the story, his sense of humor didn't really return for quite a while. He ends up saying that he is safe now, and he wrote this letter in, and again, sorry for my mispronunciation, Rathuum, and it is planning to go back on another voyage for his work, and that he will see him soon, or them soon. Point 1. As for the last book released for the Wayward Realms, it is definitely an interesting one, but doesn't offer that much in the way of informing the player what the world is like. The framing of the lore book is a letter written to Vosknik, a friend of Dee, informing him what happened and what he do. The most important part of this letter is the tale of Pyria, which is a religious tale in the style of a Greek myth. A mortal seeks out the attention of a god, and either by how they get the attention or what they want their attention for, offends the god, causing them to punish the mortal in some way. The lesson learned, or the lesson that is supposed to be learned from this, is that you should be generally wary of gods. But Diolia's case is that he just wants to scare his children for whatever reason, but just to have a fun laugh, I guess. And there's also another thing you can take this way, because a lot of religious tales also do use those tales to wear off children. Like, don't go near the forest at night because evil spirits might lurk, and it is sort of to disincentivize children to go out there. And so he could also, or this tale specifically, could also be meant to scare children off from the coast so they don't, feel the wrath of the Queen of the Seafloor. But in Dahlia's case, he just wanted to scare his children, no real other reason beyond that. Since the Wayward Realms is a fantasy story with canonical existing gods, we can assume that this tale is somewhat true. From accepting that, we can assume that Dahlia is a goddess of the sky and seems to be one of the more powerful gods, given the fact that she rules the sky, and in most religious places, most religions, place beings of the sky as the most, or one of the most powerful beings. See Zeus, for example. Another reason why we can assume that she may be powerful, even though it may be a bit minor, is that she owns the idea of shells facing upwards, that they belong to her, and again, that could also be an indication of her power. But I don't necessarily think it's as reliable as using the context that goddess of the sky gods normally are very powerful. See Zeus again. We also get, again, sorry for my mispronunciation, Critias, Queen of the Seafloor, seen here. Curiously enough, Critias isn't named as a god, but she is implied to be an elemental or something like that based on the image of the story. And why I believe this image is referring to her is that as a child is facing the elemental, we know that the only other child in the story is Aurelia, and she doesn't meet an elemental in the story. So it is safe to assume that this creature is Critias. What does that mean? It means that there are spirits in this world that aren't related to gods, but they're their own things. In the Elder Scrolls, most supernatural elements that you see are related to the gods in some fashion, except for maybe ghosts. But the point is that it seems like in the Wayward Realms there will be other spirits that don't really relate to other gods. They can just be their own thing. The lore book does mention other things of note, like the city of Rothuum, which is all we really get. We don't really get anything else. Maybe it's a port city. D also went through the, sorry for the mispronunciation, Morothi channel, which at least gives us some information on geography. D also has some business with a group called, again, mispronunciation incoming, Dungols Ag Ithor. Again, this is all we really get. And a hint at a mini game that the player might be able to play, and it is called I-Ho, but that is just speculation. And that is pretty much it for everything in the book. No real need for a point 2 here, because the only other thing the player will interact with in this game is Rotham and Murith and the mentioned goddess. So not much there. Point 3. As the last lore book to be released, it is similar to the first lore book, as it was sparse on details and seemed to focus on more giving an accurate feeling of what the world is like. In this book, the feeling it wants to convey is cruelty and confusion. Pyra wants the goddess's attention not to challenge them or because of a fault of hubris, but because he wanted to see if she was was as beautiful as his mother, and not in a no one's beautiful than my mom. It's just I want to see, I'm curious. His motivations are based on curiosity and love. Yet Diala's actions show that she doesn't care why he sought her out. She's offended that he thinks she isn't the most beautiful thing ever. So she tells the boy to take the shells, unknown to him, belonging to another, and offer them to her, most likely knowing that he will die. It seems that the gods care little for mortals, or it's not a consistent thing. The feeling is expressed extremely well in this lore book, showing us that while the gods can be good, as seen throughout the lore, they can also just be as human as anyone else. For the last lore book released, it certainly isn't the greatest, but it's good enough at what it is and set out to do. And yeah, that's the last book for the Wayward Realms. And it's not as big. It's definitely not as big as the Horsemen, and it doesn't have a lot of information either. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that does have to it is obvious that this story isn't focused on that as much as the previous books. And again, I think it fits. I think it's a good way to end it. Not the best, but certainly a good enough way. So yeah, and if you like this, talk about it in the comments down below. And yeah, I will be doing another video on the lore books as a sort of big compilation of everything. Rewriting some stuff because I know not all of it was particularly good, and I want to at least improve it, at least as minimal, as much as I can, even if though it'll be a bit minimal about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and